vulnerable right now. I'm about to weep.
Creative ways we ride all day. Let's go. Turn it up, don't stop. It's that culture shock, drop. New voices in your headphone now. Big visions from a scribble notepad. From the block to the boardroom, see it. JL Stone about to make you feel it.
Ideas in the air like confetti. Every story in the room, stay ready. Press play, get pulled in slow. Then the beat hit hard when you feel that glow. Oh.
This is Culture Shock Pod with JL Stone.
Where the culture talks back and the wild minds roam.
From the canvas to the screen, to the pen, to the phone.
If you're chasing that spark, you are not alone.
Culture Shock Pod with JL Stone.
What's up, family, and welcome to another episode of Culture Shock. I want to welcome you to the intersection of creativity and culture. I am your host, the greatest host on this side of the Mississippi, JL Stone. And I want to say shout out to my engineer that's here in the studio with me, my boy Eric Brown, E2B Productions. And today's conversation is going to be a great conversation. I want to thank everybody that's been rocking with us for the past couple of episodes. We're almost done with season 1. Let's clap it up. We almost done with season 1. I know Eric is excited about that. And we're in preparation for season 2. And I'm looking forward to what this new season, this next chapter, and what quarter 2 of 2026 is going to look like for us as a family, as a community, and as a collective. I've been pouring into my mentees, my creatives collectives for 1 year straight on Monday nights, teaching them, imparting into them, and praying for them to do the very thing that you see me doing right now. And so they have launched books, they've launched businesses, they've implemented these ideas, and their creativity has been ignited in such a degree that they've started doing new and exciting things in their life. And so we don't just talk about creativity, we implement creativity. And so Culture Shock is not only the safe space for creatives to share their story, their testimonies, and their backgrounds, but it's also a space for you to be encouraged, inspired. Maybe you'll hear something, or maybe something is spoken or a conversation is talked about that you connect with. And so I want to say thank you again to every person that has been intentional about their support of Culture Shock and everything that we've got going on. I really do appreciate it. For the past few episodes, we've used this platform to bring redress to certain spaces that I feel like needs to be talked about and addressed as it relates to our position as believers and followers of Yeshua, and our protection of the generation that is coming up after us, from predators in the pulpit to our place in our platforms, using our voices in these spaces that are so essential to the covering. Last week, we had an incredible conversation. If you have not watched it, go back and check it out, about how we cannot allow the village to produce the victims. If, in fact, we're going to be a community moving forward, we have got to be better villagers, protecting not only our adults, but also protecting our children. Kind of want to pivot this week because, again, this is the intersection of creativity and culture. So I wanted to have a conversation with my creatives today. Because one thing I have noticed is that we are the most brilliant generation that has ever lived, but we're also the most lazy. We don't mind thinking eons ahead of where we are, but we get burnt out, we get exhausted, we get tired, and we get fatigued quickly. One of the things that I do before I come on, before we come on and we tape, and I'll do this throughout the week, is I'll watch other podcasts for inspiration. I'll go back and watch some of my old episodes, and I'll just begin to look at some of the conversations that other podcasters are hosting. And it's some very, very interesting podcasts out here in the world. When I say interesting podcasts, I mean interesting podcasts. I'd be looking at some of the stuff that some of these cats be talking about, and we have podcasts that range from children to adult entertainment. I mean, the spectrum is expansive. The things people do on podcast set make me sit back and scratch my head and say, man, wow. I mean, that is something. What a way to use your gifts. Now, I don't really, I don't watch the adult entertainment podcast. Let me say that because my mother watches. Yeah, let me clarify. I've seen clips on Instagram, and of course, it's censored, and I just be like, they doing all that on the podcast. So, podcast is modern day radio. It's an opportunity for people who have absolutely nothing to talk about to start talking. And it's an interesting dynamic when you think about it because it gives a voice to people who at one point never have had a voice. When I think about podcasting, I see it as a modern day church because who was it? I think it was Booker T. Washington that writes in his book Up from Slavery. Fact check me on that. But it's Booker T. Washington that says that when the slaves got free, if they did not go back to serving at their master's house, although they were free and emancipated, most of them turned into preachers. And so the church became a place to where men and women, or typically men at that time, who had no voice, would have an opportunity to say what they felt or had some form of authority. And I feel like podcast does that for people. It gives you an opportunity for you who was once a nobody, a no name, had no voice, had no authority, had nobody listening, had nobody following you, to now be seen, heard, viewed, and in some cases validated. Because I'm shocked at the people who think dumb stuff and other people co-sign on the stupidity. So we just we live in a very strange world. But when it comes down to the thoughts of this generation, when I say this generation, I don't just mean necessarily young people, Gen Z and millennials. I mean people who are alive today. It's an interesting dynamic when you think about baby boomers and you think about your grandmother and your great grandmother, people who worked jobs for 20, 30 years, regardless of whether they liked their supervisors, they worked hard for their pension, they worked hard for their retirement. I mean, they put the time in, they dealt with all types of harsh working environments. They went to work, whether they were mentally exhausted, whether they had cancer, whether they had just had a baby, were having a baby. They went to work, whether they had gout, whether they were had full blown diabetes. It didn't matter. They worked and they had to because at that time people were not being paid to just think. They couldn't prop up their phone and go live and make thousands of dollars. They weren't afforded the opportunity to put a mic in their hand and just start talking, and millions of listeners and viewers started watching them. They had to work. Whereas this generation's level of accessibility has kind of robbed us from a work ethic that causes us to be lazy in spaces that we really should be pushing and producing. I started looking at the statistics, and according to the 2025 employment statistics, I believe it was 50% of millennials and it was 50% of Gen Z and 37% of millennials were reported if they hadn't quit their job, they were talking about quitting their job due to a litany of work environment related issues. And then 25% of millennials were quitting their jobs to start their own businesses. So if you got 100 millennials in one room, 25 of them are going to walk out and say, I could be making more money. I could be doing something better. I could be doing something different. I could be functioning in a different capacity. So I wanted to share the conversation today around the topic of the unwanted burden. A lot of creatives struggle with really being set in one space for long periods of time because of their gift, because of their creativity, because of their divine intuition. They struggle with really sitting in one space for long periods of time because really in their knower, they believe and they understand there is something that I could be doing more that I'm probably more passionate about. And 9 times out of 10, I could be getting paid more to do. So let's have the conversation because an unwanted burden 9 times out of 10 is not something that you've been praying for. It's not something you've been laying before God. It's not something that you've aligned with the stars. 9 times out of 10, your unwanted burden makes you feel as if you're living a life of frustration and rebellion, when the reality is you are not rebelling, you are living a life of misalignment. And so you are feeling as if you are missing the mark because I've declared that March is the month of the marksman. 2026 is a year of bright ideas. I tell people all the time, make sure you're taking notes. I want you to coin that over your year. 2026 is the year of bright ideas, and this is the month for the marksman. And so I don't want you to feel like the reason why you keep missing the mark is due to your immaturity or due to you just not following the instructions of the order of God. The truth is, you're wrestling with misalignment. And if you are always in an environment that is filled with insecurity, toxicity, lack of your talents being cultivated, lack of your creativity being able to flow, you're going to always feel like you're wasting time and wasting away. Here's the thing, I want to give you these notes that I got this morning. Here's what you experience when you talk about the unwanted burden. You typically see what other people don't see. You feel what other people don't feel. You imagine what doesn't exist yet, and you're expected to function inside of systems that reward maintenance and not imagination. You see what others don't see. You feel what others don't feel. You imagine what's not even seen yet. And 9 times out of 10, you get paid to maintain, but you don't get paid to be creative. And that is an aggravating factor for individuals who know they were born full of gifts, but they found themselves finding comfort in the grave. You can sit here and give all the excuses and talk about how it's hard being an entrepreneur. It's hard moving out by faith. I don't think anything God asks you to do or anything God created you to do is easy. I went to church Sunday for the first time in God knows how long. And my spiritual mother's mom preached God's SWAT team, and she preached it from the perspective of Moses. And I'm just letting you know, Dr. Swenson, I'm gonna repreach your message. I'm just telling you that now, but I'm gonna give you credit. And she talked about how Moses' life, how he was drawn out of the river, how God intentionally utilized the women that were placed around him to and strategically put him in a place of safety and preparation for the plan of his life. Moses is who was named by an Egyptian woman who gave him the name drawn out, became the leader of the drawing out of the children of Israel. But Moses had to be placed in an environment where he was able to imagine what would never been imagined before. He had to feel what he did not want to feel, and he had to be willing to see what other people did not see. He had to be able to see there is a place beyond Egypt. There is a life you can have beyond where you are right now. 9 times out of 10, a leader is an individual that said, I refuse to go with the flow. Let's do something different. And whether you are in your job, whether you're in your church, whether you're in your family, whether you're part of a small institution or a large organization, whether you're building from the ground up and you're just starting your school, whether you're launching your mentorship, whether you're still trying to figure out what the hell I want to do with my life, it's okay. It's absolutely fine, because here's the thing. You got to be willing to see what others don't see. Ephesians, no. Where's the scripture that says eyes haven't seen, ears haven't heard, neither hath it entered into the hearts of man what God has planned and prepared for his people? But the next verse of that says, but by his spirit. When you have the leading of the spirit, it allows you to see what other people don't see, because some people are only comfortable in what can control them. Some people will only go as far as the level of maintenance that they're being rewarded for. And if you are creative, if you are an individual that has passion, you have drive, you have ideas, you have imagination, you cannot afford to bury that in the month of March. Here's the thing. If you are struggling with rigidity, you are 9 times out of 10 experiencing these emotions. Number one, claustrophobia. I hate being in tight spaces. You want me to die early? Put me in a space that's tight and I feel like I can't get out. Ain't none worse than a brother feeling like he's suffocating. I don't know why, but I feel led to say this. Some of y'all are in rigid relationships. You claustrophobic You stuck in the same relationship. Y'all not going anywhere. You don't do nothing. I'm amazed. Switch cameras. Let me look at this one. I'm amazed at the individuals who are comfortable being in relationships that ain't going nowhere. I mean, I see it all the time. Y'all be on Facebook fighting and arguing and y'all be tussling just to not go nowhere. All right, sidebar. Put me back on the main screen. All right, you're claustrophobic. Number one is constant internal friction. There's nothing worse with a person that's at war with themselves and always trying to take it out on other people. You ever met somebody like that? Like, are you okay? And the truth is, you ain't mad at the world. You mad at you. Ain't nobody wake up next to you. Ain't nobody tell you put that dusty wig on. Ain't nobody tell you come out the house looking like that. Nobody told you to walk out the house looking like you didn't get no sleep last night. And because you have internal friction, you want the world to just pacify your frustration. The next time somebody walk up on you and they in their feelings because they having a bad day, you need to tell them go home and restart the day. Me and my branding manager got into it yesterday because I was having a frustrating day. I was having a frustrating day at 10 o'clock in the morning. And she had sent me some work, and I apologize, but she had sent me some work, and I sent her like two long messages of me just going off. And it was an internal frustration, although I believe my points were valid and my feelings were valid. It was not right timing. It was not right place. It was not right words. My internal frustration ended up spilling out. And she texted me back and was like, I told you I was having a morning, and this is how you're choosing to start the day. So she ended up calling me to get an understanding of why I was spazzing out. And I ended up saying, you know what? Let's restart the day. By that time, it was like 2 o'clock in the morning. And she was like, yeah, I'm going to go on break. I'm giving you space. I'm taking space. And this is what we're going to do. We're going to restart the day. And I told her, I said, when you get back to work, you just shoot me a good morning text and we'll start the day over. Sometimes you just got to look at people when you can tell they are dealing with some type of internal friction. Just look at them and say, take a beat, restart your day, and just text me good morning. I don't care if it's 6 o'clock at night, it's morning somewhere. Text me good morning when you're ready to recalibrate. And when you have calibrated, come holler at me. Because what I will not do is let you dump your internal frustration on what I'm trying to do in a space of my life where, because if we be honest, life be lifing. Life be lifing, and life is not fair. You could spend 30 years. You could spend 3 years trying to build something. Oh my gosh, you could spend months pouring into content, trying to get a podcast off the ground and get 300 views, and somebody can come, seems like out of nowhere, and post that they got a podcast and go viral. And you'll be like, what in the world? Is it the people? Is it my platform? Am I doing something wrong? And the reality is, life just lives. Life just sucks. Life's not fair. And here's the last thing. Number one, claustrophobia. Number two, you dealing with internal friction. Here's the last thing. And I want to help somebody understand. A lot of times you're experiencing rigidity in your life because you're carrying something nobody asked you to carry. Go ahead. Let's have a drink to that. You are aggravated. It's nothing worse when you are individual, especially if you're anything like me. It's nothing worse when you're the type of person that you do things without people having to ask, and you find yourself under a lot of stress, and the people that you're doing it for looking at you and be like, I ain't asked you to do that. I mean, you ever been with somebody, you ever done something with somebody and they didn't appreciate it, and you be like, you ungrateful, you unappreciative, you foul mouth, stank breath, holes in your drawers. I mean, they everything but a child of God. Cause it's like no way you sitting in my face doing this to me, when the truth is you cannot be mad at people for not respecting a burden they didn't ask you to carry. It's one thing for you to be asked and they turn around and treat you like dirt, but it's another thing for you to have volunteered your sacrifice and you expect people to go with that. You expect people to appreciate that. When the truth is, I at one point, at no point in your life did I ever ask you to show up for me in that capacity. And it's irritating. It's disheartening. It's so sad that you can surround yourself with rigid people. But the truth is, your love has got to be louder than your offense. As a creative, your love has got to be louder than your offense. If you're going to do things because it is in your nature to do it, it's in your nature to serve like this, it's in your nature to always exude this type of sacrificial lifestyle, you cannot be offended when you are in seasons and spaces where there is no reciprocity. Lack of reciprocity causes rust and rigidity to the creative in such a degree that you would rather self-destruct than move forward. I want to free you from that because this is not the season for you to self-destruct. This is the season for you to be self-empowered. All right? Let's talk about the psychological weight of creative suppression. Because the truth is, when a creative is forced into certain environments that only value their productivity and not their innovation, 9 times out of 10, three things are going to happen. You're going to disengage emotionally. You start overthinking everything. And then you start fantasizing about escape. I think the rattling reality for so many individuals is you are a slave to your environment. And you dream of leaving versus dreaming of living. When I'm in a space to I want my friends to live and I want to live so that I can celebrate my friends. But if I'm always the one that's full of life, always the one that's willing to show up, always the one that's willing to make the sacrifice to live, it's crazy. We live in a world right now that you got to sacrifice to live. I'm in a humor class, taking a humor class, and I didn't think that there was actually a psychology to humor. Interesting dynamic, actually. I never thought that there was a psychology to humor. I never thought that there was literally theories, communication theories that surround humor. And when you study the historicity of humor, the Greeks were taught that you could not laugh because the laughter was a sign of a deity. It was literally a godlike feature. When you study the Torah does not teach you that laughter is a gift from God, because God is always seen in the Old Testament as a strictly business type of deity. Fire and brimstone, I will deal with Israel in X, Y, and Z. And so it's not really until you get into the stories of the prophets that you see God being more lenient. It's like you get the inside scoop of how God wants Israel to prosper, but the Torah is more so of this has got to be done by the book. And so the Hebrews see Adonai as an individual that is strictly business. We cannot laugh, we cannot joke, we cannot gesture. Whereas the Greeks see their gods who laugh as entities that share that quality and that characteristic because they are gods. And so as time progresses, they begin to form philosophy. Philosophers like Socrates, Aristotle, they begin to form not theology, they begin to form philosophies around the fact that if you do laugh, if you do celebrate life, it is a godlike feature. I think it's an interesting dynamic that people have to sacrifice to live these days, because to laugh and enjoy life is your innate God ability. Because I'm a mature believer, while I'm studying this in class, I'm not locked into the notion that, oh my God, God doesn't want me to laugh. God doesn't want me to enjoy life. No. He wants me to be fruitful and multiply. That just means more than having children. However, I believe that my ability to enjoy life is a part of my God-given assignment with the life he's given me. The moment I feel like I got to give up my right to breathe, to build somebody else's life, I have become a slave to my environment. That makes no sense. So one thing I do like about this generation, y'all, we don't mind taking a day off. Well, call in for a mental day in a heartbeat. I told my professors I got a week worth of tests during spring break, and I was gonna be home for spring break, but I said I'm gonna just have to take that computer and prop it up on somebody's beachfront window, cause ain't no way in Hades I'm finna sit here, and I know I need a vacation. We in here every week between traveling, between ministering, between working on lives, pouring into mentees. There is not a season or a session of my life that I don't show up. Just because I resigned from pastoring doesn't mean I resigned from leading. And my life still revolves around me pouring into people. You got to know when it's time for you to pivot and when it's time for you to shift. If not, I found myself disengaging emotionally. I found myself overthinking everything. Man, you talk about nights where you couldn't sleep, nights where you couldn't function, moments to where it was hard for me to minister and pour because I'm overthinking everything. It seems like as soon as you get a grip on one thing, the camera stop working. The Wi-Fi want to go out. The microphone won't connect. Your daughter acting crazy in school. Your ex-wife is pulling on you for this, that, and the third. God forbid you and your girlfriend get into it before you gotta go preach. Like, what is going on right now? Started overthinking things because I started anticipating something going wrong. Instead of anticipating a good outcome, I started anticipating a negative effect because I was being rewarded for maintenance and not imagination. And so I started fantasizing about what life would be like outside of my norm. If I packed up and moved to Houston, if me and Evie ever stopped talking, I break my lease and go stay with my uncle for 6 months to a year and build a life in a city where nobody knows me. I started fantasizing about escaping. Started realizing that what was holding me in Valdosta was holding me up from life. When I stepped up as a youth pastor, my mother got married. She had moved. My aunt had moved. My uncle lives in Houston. It was just me and my grandma. Somebody got to be here. Somebody got to stick around to help make sure that grandma's good, that grandma's protected. And so I started bringing my friends around, my grandma, George, Miracle. At the time Tara and it's just everybody that was around me. They loved Apostle Gardner. We was having church every week, having something going on every month. And I kept young people around my grandmother because I didn't want my grandmother to feel like she was losing community because her children had moved on with their life. And so I said, well, I'm still here for grandma. Now grandma's retired and in her 70s, and my mama's back in Valdosta, and my aunt's back in Valdosta, and my uncle getting ready to move to Africa. I'm trying to figure out what the hell am I still doing here. I'm dreaming of I dream a genie. Trying to figure out why. So then I started saying, well, I'm still here for my daughter. And it's like, do planes not exist? Do trains not exist? At 5 years old, my daughter loves to travel. Car rides don't exist. What are you still holding your life up for? Started dreaming of escaping. So I want the person that's listening to me to hear this. Like, I don't regret my decisions, but boy, I know if I would have ever went off to college, sweet Holy Spirit, sweet heavenly dove. See, sometimes God gotta let things not go your way, so things don't go your way. Cause if I would have went off to college, Lord have mercy, I might be married by now for the second time. Might have a couple kids. I mean, get it all, Doc. Lord, we thank you for what didn't happen. We thank you for what didn't happen. All right, where we at? We at point number 3. Here's the thing. I don't want you to exit without a strategy. If you're gonna walk away from certain spaces, you gotta know, is it an exit or is it an escape? But you need a strategy. Here's what you gotta do. I need you to understand leaving isn't breakthrough. Stewardship is. A lot of times, especially millennials, we romanticize entrepreneurship without understanding the sacrifices that it requires to be a builder. I'm talking to marksmen this month. And so when you talk about hitting your targets, you got to be willing to put the hours in. You got to be willing to you got to be willing to get up and do it on the nights and the mornings that you don't want to get up and do it. I had a consultation with a young lady yesterday, and she was talking to me about her gym content, and then she told me, she says, "Well, I do prayer for single mothers on Mondays." I said, "Don't focus on the gym content. You need to lean into that single mothers prayer on Mondays." I say, and that needs to scale into Mondays and Wednesdays. I gave her strategy and language on what she needs to do. And then she started talking about her brand and her business. I said, well, it does no good to have a brand if you don't have an audience. I said, you build your brand. I said, your brand will be built by you building your audience with these single mothers. Build a brand around that. Let's brand that. I said, that is a growing entity. Single mothers are produced every day. Single mothers who need prayer are produced every hour. Lean into that. Don't romanticize entrepreneurship just because you're in a space where you don't. Not saying she is. Don't romanticize entrepreneurship just because you're in a space to where you're like, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to do something different. You need a strategy. You need a route that is going to help you understand the levels of sacrifice that you are going to have to make. I don't want you to quit from exhaustion. You need to quit because you have clarity. One of the biggest things that I learned is a lot of people tell you, keep going, don't quit, don't quit. Maybe you do need to quit. Maybe you do need to quit. Maybe have you considered quitting? Not because you're exhausted, but quitting because you have clarity. When I quit my job working at the airport back in 2015, I thought the Lord was going to really launch my ministry. I had preached somewhere in Valdosta. I think it was Valdosta, or I think it was when I did that 3-day revival in Tifton. And the Lord told me that He was launching my name. Boy, that's all I needed to hear. I've launched your name. I said, oh yes, I'm ready. Went in and put in my 2 weeks, and God knows I struggled like crazy. Because but you know what's interesting though? I was struggling, and I was making like $400-500 maybe every 2 weeks. And I'm trying to figure out why I never had no money. The cost of living was so much cheaper than. I had no rent. I had no car note. What was I buying? It was them baggy suits and them long church shoes. Had to be, because I'm trying to figure out what was I doing as to why I never had no money. And then I took a work study program job on the campus, and I went from making $500-600 every 2 weeks to $200 every 2 weeks. Oh God. Thank God though, they came out with Facebook Live. And I went live one time and started preaching and prophesying. And I'll never forget, somebody said, "What's your cash app?" I said, What you mean what's my cash app? And thus Midnight Oil was birthed. God, keep making ways. See, I quit because I had clarity. God launched my name. I didn't understand it at the time. I was like, God, you tripping. I ain't making no money. I'm talking about getting married. But it was just, I went live one time. Somebody asked for my cash app. They sold that $100. I said, I done made $100 an hour off of preaching virtually. And it just kind of launched the ministry from there in a virtual aspect. And then, of course, I was traveling and ministering, but it was like, dang. And to my fellow colleagues in the ministry who do virtual ministry, you kind of understand that doing virtual ministry is definitely give and take. For people who just prop their phone up and go live and they raise thousands of dollars, They don't really understand the sacrifice. People like me, when you see me go live, regardless of whatever we raise, if you've ever been in my studio, you realize my proceeds don't go to Gucci and Louis Vuitton and all of that. When you walk in the studio, you be like, "Oh, this where it's going. This is where those resources are going." And then we do outreach. I don't just sit here. I don't buy book bags for kids and notebooks for kids for back to school. Now we do real serious outreach. But to my point, I knew when I pivoted, I needed clarity about what God was doing in my life. And so in those moments to where I was struggling to pay my light bill, whew, I'm about to start crying. I ain't gonna do it. The months that I was struggling to pay my light bill because I was living in a house that had no central heat and air, and all we had was window units, and window units pull a lot of power. So during the summer, my light bills was $600 and $700. And again, I wasn't working. Work studies job, man, ain't working during the summer. And I had got a new car. Man, I remember I couldn't afford to pay a $300 car note. Now I'm sitting here trying to figure out how I'm paying off a Mercedes. Ain't God all right? And then on those days where it's like my gas getting cut off, the gas man, my gas used to get cut off so much, the gas man knew me by name. And he would knock on my door and say, "I'm supposed to turn it off. Can you at least pay it before the end of the day?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, I got you, man. I got you. I got you. I got you." And I would have to call my grandma and borrow some money, or I had to go live to try to get it because if I don't pay my gas bill, I'm gonna be taking a cold shower. I remember the nights I would go to my grandma's house to take a shower, and you got pride, so you don't want to tell her your stuff got cut off, so you just be like, "Oh, I'm just on this side of town." I'm over here on this side of town. Thank God I started dating somebody that had her own place to stay. So I just be like, "Listen, I'm gonna come stay tonight with you." When the truth is, a brother ain't got no power at his house. Preaching the gospel, poor stewardship of money. But I thank God for growth. Hear me, creatives. Hear me, creatives. It don't always last. Now I'm in another season where I'm saying it won't always be like this. You got to think about how God pulled you out the last season, how God brought you out the last season. So here's the thing. I don't want you to make this decision for you to pivot. I don't want you to carry this burden because of your impulsive decisions, because of your financial instability, and because you're struggling with an identity crisis. I need you to make this decision because you understand wholeheartedly what it is that God has created you to do. I want you to understand that you are in one of the greatest seasons of your life to pivot. And you're probably frustrated because you refuse to make a decision based off of where you are, your fear of being rejected, your fear of being validated, your fear of being noticed. That cannot be your driving force for you to hit your targets in the month of March. You're carrying the unwanted burden because you refuse to do what it takes to be effective and successful. Here is how you refrain from the burden. You got to have strategy. You got to have systems, and you got to have stamina. You got to have strategy. You got to have systems, and you got to have stamina. And another thing you got to have is you have to have spiritual and emotional maturity. If you are always emotionally all over the place, you will burn yourself out and you won't build nothing that's supposed to last. I think for some of you, you think you're building something great when the truth is you're really playing Jenga. You're building while taking pieces away at the same time. Stop that silliness. Come out of that place of depravity. This is what I need you to do. I'm going to give you your marching orders in the month of March. This is what I need you to do, chat. I need you to train your mind. Philippians 2:5 declares, "Let this mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus." I need you to train your mind Because if in fact you have a made up mind, you can accomplish more than you think you can. Number two, I need you to train your hands. Ecclesiastes 10:10 says, where there is no sharpening of the sword or the edge, more strength is required. If in fact your hands are not trained, if you don't allow God to prepare your fingers and your hands for battle and war, you will always find yourself exerting more strength when you could be using your creativity. Next thing I need you to do is I need you to train your feet, for the steps of a good man or woman are ordered by the Lord. Train your feet to follow God's order. If God is leading you to leave, trust him for the exit plan. If God is leading you into something new, trust that it is a season for you to embrace the new. It's springing forth, and it requires you got to do what God is telling you to do in the now. The last thing I need you to do, creative, is train your heart. Above all else, guard your heart, for out of it flows the issues of life. Your heart is the place where God communicates your passion and your creativity into your community. And if you're not careful, you will try to live a life of creativity and effectiveness while suffering from broken heart syndrome. Creative, hear me today. This is your month to hit your target. You are God's marksman, whether you're the everyday individual, the Fortune 200, Fortune 500, Fortune 300 company CEO, whether you're building your brand from the ground up or you've inherited a brand that needs a brand overhaul, whether you're living a life of maintenance or you're out here like me walking by faith, regardless of your position, never let that alter your perspective. Here's the thing, you got to hit your targets this month. And so regardless of the culture says if you don't like it, walk away from it. I need you to utilize your creativity to leverage where it is God has placed you and what it is God has you doing. All right, I want to say this. I will say this on this platform. Put me here. I will say this on this platform. I feel led to say this. This is in my spirit as a prophetic voice and as an individual that speaks for the culture. I am excited and I am happy and I love all of the posts that the Johnson family is receiving in 2026, all of the new support that the Johnson family is receiving as it relates to the loss of Kendrick KJ Johnson, I believe in the year 2013, that KJ was brutally murdered here in Valdosta, Georgia, and his body was found in the old gymnasium of Lowndes County. I want to say on behalf of the spiritual community, as a spiritual leader in this city, as someone who has been a silent intercessor, the Lord told me 2 years ago, I was standing in my shower, and I remember because I was at this house, I was standing in my shower, the Lord told me, he says that family is going to begin to receive justice soon. I want to say this, though, prophetically. I'm not prophesying justice to the family. I'm sure they've heard it a million times, and people are on the front line fighting. My address is to the city of Valdosta. As things begin to come to a head with this case, I've been declaring for, I know, 4 or 5 years that we are at the turning point of a political tide in this city and in this community. Hear me prophetically. As things begin to come to a head in this city, there's about to be a strong political shift in the community. There's going to be a turning of the tide. Now, this is the thing. This is the best time for the church to be the church. This is the best time for community leaders to be visible, to be seen, and to be active. Because as things begin to come to a head with this case, it is going to jumpstart a series of exposure that I'm not sure the city is going to be ready for. So I want to share that with the Johnson family. I am always praying for you. You're in my thoughts and my prayers. My family loves you. To the parents of KJ, you have inherited sons and daughters all throughout this community, and we're standing with you, and we scream from the mountaintop, justice for KJ. There is going to be a level of exposure that's going to hit this city and this community, and I need the saints to be praying because it's going to shift, but it's going to be for the good. We declare Romans 8:28. It works together for the good of them that love the Lord. Culture Shock, I appreciate the love and support to everybody that's been rocking with us. It means a lot to me, man. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, send this out, rock with me. We've got some incredible guests that's coming up over the next couple of weeks as we are in preparation to conclude season 1. I look forward to everything that's getting ready to happen in your life. I love you, and as always, stay creative.
Vulnerable right now, I'm about to weep.
Creative ways we ride all day. Let's go. Turn it up, don't stop. It's that culture shock drop. New voices in your headphone now. Big visions from a scribble notepad. From the block to the boardroom, see it. Damn, stone about to make you feel it.
Ideas in the air like confetti. Every story in the room, stay ready. Press play, get pulled in slow. Then the beat hit hard when you feel that glow. Oh.
This is Culture Shock Pod with JL Stone.
Where the culture talks back.